Okay, I think I know what I wanted to talk about. I had a previous video earlier that I won't upload that I'm going to have to delete, which was basically me not being able to think of a topic while I'm driving. Right now, the topic that I'm thinking of revolving around books is the following. Don't give up on reading. And this doesn't just go for whoever you might be, but this goes for myself. Not to give up on reading. And what do I mean by that? Because there are a lot of people who just simply don't read. But for readers, if you're somebody who has been convinced that you need to read so that you live a better life, so that you're smarter, so that you are successful because successful people read books. If you're somebody who has had to convince yourself to read because it's somehow going to make your life better, then I'm going to just caution you to not give up on that, because it's very easy to think that your reading is pointless and not going anywhere, and the age-old argument of when am I ever going to use this? I think that's something that happens a lot. I was one of those kids where I would be like, when am I ever going to use this? And I of course, like many, had that complaint in math class. When am I ever going to use this? And the same can be said for anything in life. When am I ever going to use this? There are so many things in life that are basically just they can seem to be pointless. It's very easy to convince yourself that something is pointless. And I know that I've had that come up in my life a lot, because maybe the thing is not bringing you to where you want to be or where you wish to be. For reading, you can boil it down to something very simple. Just the act of reading is an act of focus. It's an act of taking your time with something, spending time trying to learn something. It's an act of trying to stretch your brain. Maybe you get smarter from it, maybe you don't, but you're not in a situation where you're wasting your time. When am I ever going to use this? You might never use something. You might use it. You don't know. But I think the thing is, none of us can plan our future in a way where we use everything that we're partaking of every moment. I mean, the same can be said for, like, if you're meditating, when am I ever going to use this? Or if you're praying, when am I ever going to use this? Or if you're helping somebody else, when are you ever going to use that in the future? I mean, when am I ever going to use this can be applied to anything. And I started to apply this to my reading not that long ago, when I got very jaded and cynical about reading. And the reason why I was jaded and cynical was because I needed to break my addiction to reading, so that I would slow down, so that I would really enjoy a book and take my time. And I think that's, if you're getting to the point where you feel like reading is useless, your approach could be needing some refreshment. Maybe your approach should be that you should start taking your time. Maybe your approach should be that you start taking notes, or you try out an author that you haven't tried, or a genre you haven't tried. Or maybe you try to write a little bit and then you approach reading, or you just anything. I mean, there's so many different books. There's so many things. Don't ever think that you must read a bunch of books, or you must read certain kinds of books. I know that Harold Bloom, a eminent literary critic and Yale professor, Of course, he's passed away now, but he was adamant about reading the Western canon, which that's fine if you want to read the Western canon. I've read much of it myself, and there are a lot of things I enjoyed, and there are a lot of things I felt I didn't really care for. I didn't need to read. But his argument that he made that I'm addressing right this moment is that you need to read the very best that's been written. Like, you only have so much lifespan. You don't have time to read garbage. You can only have time, really, to read the best. And I don't know about that. I mean, if you're dedicating your life to reading, sure, okay, that's one approach. But if you're just somebody who's living life, trying to get through it like anyone else, you don't necessarily need to. You don't need to read the very best all the time. But you should try to read very difficult or very great books some of the time. You shouldn't completely ignore them, because hey, you might read it and might find you enjoy it. But it certainly makes sense to read as you wish to read. How does reading apply to your life? So I've read I have come across a couple different book lists, reading lists of books having been read by various people. One of them was Art Garfunkel, who is a musician, and one of them was Bruce Lee, who is a actor and martial artist. I assume anyone watching this knows who those people are. Anyway, Art Garfunkel reads books kind of like I read books. If you see his list, his reading list is, a smattering of classics, of nonfiction, fiction, literature, occasional study type books, reference books, just like all over the place. There isn't like a dedicated, focused anything in his reading. Whereas Bruce Lee's reading was very much highly focused on Eastern philosophy, on martial arts, all sorts of martial arts like fencing, boxing, wrestling, anything that he could get his hands on, and workout books and nutrition books and some self-help type books. One thing I noticed from Bruce Lee's book list is I think there was just one book of fiction on his entire list. I mean, the guy was insanely focused, reading just what applied to his life of acting and martial arts in particular, and Eastern philosophy, which he was interested in. As for Art Garfunkel, he's more like me. He just reads everything, and lots of fiction is involved in that. But was one reading list better than the other? No, I would say absolutely not. Bruce Lee's reading list applied to his life, and Art Garfunkel's reading list, I mean, he doesn't need to read tons of stuff about music. He can just enjoy whatever he wants. So I'm going to wrap this up because I'm at my destination. But don't give up on reading. It still can be quite useful for you in a way that you don't know. Maybe you need to spend a little time coming up with your own reading list that is focused on your needs. And that's something that I think everyone can benefit from. Talk to you next time. Bye.